Hi friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and we've got a TwoSun folder for you today. This is just a little folder, just the tiniest bit under 3 inches in length. We've got thumb studs, and we've got a bit of a front flipper as well. 14C28N stainless steel, night morning design, model number TS334. Just a tiny bit over 40 bucks when you use our discount code CCE. Of course, that's American dollars. That's just a good price. Other stores have this, like AliExpress has it, but it's another 15, 16, 20 bucks more, something like that. I forget the exact number. Certainly the best price is White Mountain Knives. Don't forget to use coupon code CCE to save 10% on every purchase at White Mountain Knives. I don't get a commission from them, so it's not like I'm getting a kickback or anything. I just want to let you know that the best price around is at White Mountain Knives 9 times out of 10, maybe even a higher number than that. So let's get to the tabletop, and we're going to take a good close look at this knife from TwoSun. Keep watching. As usual, let us begin with our size comparison with the Ontario Rat 1 in the picture. Yeah, right there, just barely in frame, maybe not even fully. Line up those pivot pins. Clearly, it's a smaller knife. Yes, this is a sub 3-inch knife. By the tiniest margins, it's 2.99 inches from the tip to the handle scale. Depending on how it gets measured, if they measure up along the spine, that's a little over 3 inches. So you know where you live and what your laws are, so you deal with that the way you can. Yeah, it's a smaller knife, but it's not terribly small because we've got this forward section here that we can use to cinch up. And so then you've got a full grip here. Your pinky doesn't have to go back here at all. Like, you can do it if you want to reach out. Then I'll sort of lock my pinky back there, and then I've got a little more reach. But certainly you can cinch up a little bit. With this huge swedge up here, it's not too comfortable bringing your thumb way up here. And yeah, that's healing. I know it looks dark, but it is healing up. Pushing like that for any amount of time, it starts to get annoying because that's a pretty thin swedge there. That false edge makes it a good piercing kind of knife, if you can trust it to pierce with. Notice there's no guard here. So if you're piercing into something and it bumps into something hard and abruptly stops, your hand might just go over that edge. And that's never a good thing when you're slicing into your fingers, is it? Other than that, I really like this blade. 14C28N stainless steel, late morning design, TS334. Those are all the badging that's on the blade. Other than that, there's nothing on the blade. Now, I would have preferred if they could have found a way to put it on that flat section up there instead of on the main bevel, but TwoSun loves to put stuff on the main bevel, so that's how it is. Certainly, it's not a full flat grind. This swedge up here takes it away. You can see that, it would have been, the bevel would have only gone up to about there and left at least 1/4 of an inch at the top. It's basically a spear point kind of blade right now. The tip of it, the swedge doesn't come right down to the point. It's up a little bit, but that tip of it, that's a dangerous tip. You certainly could, pierce into those, like I was saying before. It's just a little nerve-wracking without that guard. Other than that, that blade's quite well done. I'll give all the specs for this a little bit later on. Sharpening, pretty good. Not great, but pretty good. And the handle. Well, the handle, we've got this coarse micarta on here. And you can see these black spots there. This micarta is not the cleanest. I don't know if that's a stain that got put on at the factory or if that's in the micarta, those black spots there or not. It looks a bit rustic. I would have preferred, a cleaner look like on this side, but even on this side, there is a little bit of black in some of those lines there where the fabric is. I don't mind too much. It's okay. We've got a fairly straight back, and then the end comes down here like this. There's no lanyard hole. There is a G10 back spacer that covers about 1/3 of the handle. And so micarta and G10. The liners are inset, and we've got the traditional budget pocket clip from TwoSun. It's a little big. It's a bit big for this knife. I'm not that fond of this pocket clip. I've mentioned that so many times on my reviews of TwoSun knives. There's one thing I could change about TwoSun knives, it's the pocket clip, especially on these budget knives. On their higher end knives, they've got custom, titanium clips and stuff. Not that fond of this one, but it's functional. And I'll show you that. Just like on most knives, they just work. It's a little bit more space. Like you could have really thick pants if you wanted to. There's lots of room in there. But, it sits in there. Just a little bit of the knife sticking out. Not much at all. That clip comes right about to the end. Not perfectly, but there you go. It's okay. I just wish this was a little bit smaller. We've got T8 screws in there, but they're button screws. I like that they're T8, but I wish they could have made them maybe inset somehow or something. The rest of the handle, these are all T8 screws except for right here, T6 right there. And there's another one underneath, the head of the pocket clip right there. Looks like a good quality screw, and the tolerances are quite nice. Here I've got my Weeha T6 right here. It sits in there, and there's the very tiniest bit of play in there, very little at all. So that nice snug fit means it's going to be challenging to strip that out as long as you put the screw head all the way in. The same thing with the T8 screws. That's a T6 on the back too. I didn't realize it because I never took that apart. I've taken it apart on this side because I recorded the video part of it taken apart earlier. So those button screws are T8 and that's a T8, but these are both T6s back here. So these T8 screws, let me check those. There's a tiny bit of play there. And this T8 screw, even less play there than on the pocket clip. Pretty good. It's a liner lock. Lockup is very good. We've got just a little bit of a shallower cut here so you can get at that lock release. There's some jipping on the top. It's easy enough to disengage, the lock and deploy the knife. So happy with that. It's a cross between a thumb stud knife and a front flipper. So with this cut right here, I can't really do the front flipper that well. There we go, with a little bit extra flip. I'm pushing with the side of my thumb back here at the knuckle instead of up there. So it works really well. The action's actually very smooth, and that works great. I like these thumb studs. Good looking thumb studs. We've seen them before on TwoSun knives. I'm happy with those. It's very easy to get behind the thumb stud either with the left or the right hand. No problem at all to do that. Feels like we've got some really nice bearings in there, and we do. I'll show you those in a minute. The other things about this pivot, there's no blade play, side to side, up and down. The lockup's very well done. And the alignment's right down the middle. Now, it's hard to get a good close-up picture because of the shadows right in there. The blade alignment's pretty much perfect. Very well done indeed. We've got a stop pin back here. That stop pin is only for when you close the knife. It comes and sits right there. You can see a little bit of a mark right there in the sharpener's choil, and that's what hits the inside of that pin to keep it safe. The edge, I can't reach it. If I dig in with my nail, I can reach the edge there, but it's pretty safe. And when you open the knife, we've got this exposed liner right here, and that's the stop. The thumb studs are the stop pin for when you open the knife. So yeah, pretty cool design. Well made. How well does it cut? It cuts and slices very well. It's very thin behind the edge. 14C28N when it's sharpened okay, and this is sharpened okay, not great, but sharpened okay. It just cuts and slices very well. And as long as you know you're going into only soft stuff, it pierces well as well. One thing I forgot to mention so far is the jimping. We got some jimping on the spine of the blade right there. That's about as far as it can go because of the swedge, so that's okay. And when your thumb's back here, it's grippy enough without being extra grippy, so that's pretty good. That's the overview of the knife. Now let's take it apart. Once you've got that screw out, you can take the handle scale off. Then you've got another screw right back here, so you got to take that apart. First, the screws, the hardware, very good. We've got a back spacer, pretty big. You need it. There's no step off on this pin, so it's really best if you use that standoff. There's the pivot collar. Yes, dual row ball bearings, ceramic ball bearings. Remember the price of this knife? Yeah, just over 40 bucks US with my discount. Very nice. Oh yeah, D-shaped hole right here. And of course, the D-shaped pin. Good construction, very solidly made. So it's time for all the dimensions, but before I do that, I'll tell you, I put some of that gunny glide in there, and that action is super smooth now. It just flies open. No problem. Very, very smooth action. Very happy with that. The weight of this knife, 119 grams, 4.2 ounces. Factory sharpness, 190 bests. A little bit worse than average, but not terrible at all. The cutting edge length, 73.8 millimeters, 2.91 inches. Blade length, tip to the closest spot on the handle, 76 millimeters, 2.99 inches. The thickness of the blade measured on that flat section right there, 3.66 millimeters, 0.144 of an inch. So, a little bit bigger than 1/8 of an inch. The blade depth is biggest right here, not quite at the heel of the blade, up just a tiny bit, 30.2 millimeters, 1.19 inches. How thin is it behind the grind? 0.38 millimeters, 15,000ths of an inch. That's measured at 3 spots and averaged out, so that's nice and thin. That helps make it very slicey, very stabby. The thickness of this section here on the spine, this false edge, I'll just put that on the screen. I didn't measure that ahead of time. The grind angles. On this side, we've got an average of 20.15 degrees. On this side, 19.1 degrees. So pretty good. It started at 20.4 and ended at 17.8 degrees. That's 2.6 degrees of change. This side started at 20.2, ended at 20.1. So that's pretty consistent. 1/10 of a degree change along the length and pretty close to 20 degrees. Not bad. I'd sharpen this to 18, maybe even less. This is not a heavy, hard use knife. It's not a chopper or anything. And 14C28N could easily handle, 16, 17, 18 degrees per side. The length of the handle, 107.6 millimeters, 4.24 inches. The grip area, if we count this forward choil, about 10 centimeters, about 4 inches. That's a lot of grip area. The thickness of the handle, 13.9 millimeters, 0.547 of an inch. The depth of the handle within the grip area, the widest point I'm going to say is right here, like right over the locking interface is where I measured that. 29 millimeters, 1.14 inches. And when the knife is closed, the widest point is right here in the close to the middle, 31.4 millimeters, 1.24 inches. And the total length of this knife, 184 millimeters, 7.24 inches. I forgot to do the balance point. I do that so often in my videos. There it is right there. Let's turn it around. There it is right there. Pretty much over, the jimping on the lock release. I wouldn't mind if it was a little bit further forward, especially with this forward choil. I found myself very often gripping it like this, just right up to the edge and doing my cutting. Did some softwood whittling, some pine, some spruce. Did some harder cutting like this too, and that works just fine. I'm very happy with this thing. In other words, my summary is, this is a good knife. It's at a great price, $45.99. You take off 10%, $41.39 US. Very good price. If you can't find it at White Mountain Knives, it is still in stock when I recorded this, but if you can't find it there, you can also get it at AliExpress. Some stores have it for $59, some stores have it for $65, and at Amazon.com, it's also, I think, $60 or is it $65 at Amazon.com. So clearly, even without my discount codes, White Mountain Knives is a much better price. It's pretty much the first place to shop if you're going to be getting a TwoSun knife, or any knife for that matter. Of course, I always advocate shopping around. Get the best price you can, but check out White Mountain Knives and remember your 10% coupon code there. I'm very happy with this knife. It might become one of my keepers. It's, a low price, it's well made, it's solid, good action, good steel for a budget knife, great bearings in there. Hand feels nice, and it's not too huge. And thumb stud knives are just, better in Canada because people are scared of flippers, and this doesn't really look like a flipper. I'm sure there's very few cops in Canada that are going to look at this knife and think it's a front flipper. They're not going to know what front flippers are. They're going to see the studs, and thumb stud knives are just fine. Flipper knives are not illegal in Canada. At least my reading of the law is that they're not illegal. It's just that CBSA doesn't like to import flipper knives for consumers. The knife stores can import them, no problem. But consumers, yeah, they don't want us to import them. Thanks everyone for supporting the channel. You guys are awesome. And everyone who watched this far, you guys are nuts. I love you. Remember, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb. Bye for now.